Q4 has historically been my highest sales and growth period in my business every year for, I'm pretty sure, the last 9 years. Now, that is not a coincidence. And whilst, of course, every single business is different, I do see across the board so much opportunity ahead in these next few months. It's the final stretch of the year. From a commercial perspective, it's often where a lot of businesses, but also consumers, are thinking about kind of investing, making key decisions, moving forwards towards their own goals. And I also just think there's something about it being that final stretch, the finish line is in sight, and there's an opportunity to kind of really end the year strong. This episode is going to be about what I believe it takes to make Q4 your best period of the year to date, and to really maximize on not just sales and revenue and the financial stuff, but also just your business's growth in this period. My goal for you, well, my goal for myself, but if you're tuning into this, I assume and hope you're maybe feeling similar, is to really make this final stretch count. And what I mean by that is two things. First of all, using this final stretch to really honor the vision and the priorities that you entered the year with. I always love to, at this point in the year, think back to the me of January, which at this point in the year, I think can feel really far away and maybe like quite a different version of yourself. But to realize that that version of you that entered the year with certain kind of hopes, ideas, priorities, things that were important to them, and to have an opportunity now to almost go back to that past version of you and really honor them, honor what it is that is important to them, to have an opportunity to kind of continue the momentum on whatever it was that we entered the year wanting. Of course, those things might have changed shape or become a little bit different as time has gone on. We don't have to continue on with what we entered the year with for the sake of it. But I think that's a really nice feeling to kind of think, right, how do I use this final stretch to honor what it was that was important to me as I entered the year? And the second thing that I think is really exciting about this final stretch is the way that we can also use it to lay the foundations for next year's growth. I am always thinking about future me. In fact, now that I think about it, I feel like I think more about past me and future me than I do about current me. Like, I'm always thinking, like, how do I learn from past me? How do I honor past me? How do I make past me proud? And then future me, I'm always like, how do I make future me grateful? Like, what's my future self going to want current me to be doing? And when I think of that future self at this time of year, I'm thinking of the me of 2026, not just the me of January as I enter the year, but across the whole of next year. What am I going to be glad I did in these next few months in order for next year to be as full of opportunity and growth as possible? I love nothing more than the satisfaction of ending a day or a week and really feeling like I worked hard. Not, by the measure of like, oh, I worked for 12 hours, I didn't take a break, I hustled, but more like I did meaningful work. I made a difference. I, did things that were important to me. And I feel like we get the opportunity to do that on a really big scale in Q4. It's that final push. It's that couple of hours at the end of the day where you're like, right, come on, fresh energy, finish line is in sight. What are we going to do with it? So with that in mind and all of this opportunity ahead of us, I want to share with you 4 key habits, mindsets, principles that I adopt every single year in order to make the most of Q4. And let me reiterate again, making the most of it, ending the year strong, is not about burning yourself out or, progress at any cost or just hustle. It's intentionality. It's thinking, right, what does success look like in the next few months and how do I achieve that? What I'm about to share in this episode is what's going to help you to achieve that, whatever success looks like for you in the next few months. You'll have probably heard me talk about some of these things before, but at this point in the year, we don't often need rocket science or brand new concepts. We need recentering. We need bringing back to the things that really matter, the basic but easily forgotten things that really drive growth. And by the way, there is a secret 5th step that I'm going to share in this episode, which you're going to want to make sure that you stick around for. So starting off with number 1, the first thing it takes to have your most successful quarter of the year is to remember and act like you are in control. When we are passive in our business growth, when we act like everything is happening to us and we are completely detached from our end results and what happens in our businesses, we are basically putting ourselves into the position of being a passenger in our own business growth. We are completely taking away any kind of responsibility or influence that we have over what happens. And I understand why we sometimes do that. Because it's not quite black and white that we can control absolutely everything, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we can control every single thing that happens in our businesses and to us. But also B, because I think sometimes we can detach ourselves from being in control, because if we admit that we're in control, then suddenly we feel a lot more responsible, and then it feels a bit scary of like, well, what happens if I don't create the things that I want to create? But I want us just to take a moment and just find that gray area, find that middle ground where we really understand the level of influence we have as the owner of our businesses. We are not going to lie to ourselves and say that, yeah, I can control absolutely everything, because you can't, and you're only going to get frustrated when things then happen that are outside of your control. But we're also not going to go to the other end of the spectrum and act like, everything's just an accident. What happens, happens. I'm just seeing where it goes. We want to find that middle ground where we control the controllables. And I think the most important thing is remembering that we have influence and therefore acting in line with that. There is a direct correlation between the action that you take and where your business is going to be in 3 months' time. That direct correlation is not a perfect equation, right? It's not like if you do this, you're definitely going to be there. Sadly, not quite so simple and easy to grow a business, but there's a link. And I'll tell you where there's definitely a link is where there's no action, there's no growth, or at least no growth that is going to be meaningful to you. When we're not proactive with our growth, we allow our businesses to evolve and almost kind of, like a snowball falling down a hill, just kind of go where it wants to go, right? Maybe then you're more led by what your community want from you, what others in your industry are doing, or just what naturally seems to be happening. And whilst there's nothing massively wrong with that, actually, I think what's important is intentional growth, proactive growth, where we are deciding as the business owner, hey, this is where I'm going, and I'm going to take control of getting us there, or at least getting us as close to there as I can. It's that middle ground, right? Where we're going, okay, I can't fully control things, but I can influence things, and I'm going to act like that is true, because it is. So that's the first thing to remember. Even if maybe the year so far has felt unexpected, things have been out of your control, or you haven't felt like you've really taken that ownership, you get to draw a line. This is the moment to then go, right, I'm in control. So therefore, here's the key bit, I'm going to act like it. So what does it look like to act like you're in control? Well, the second step to making Q4 a really impactful one for your business is to be laser focused. When you try and do too many things at once in a short period of time, and I believe 3 months to be a short period of time, right? Stuff in business moves quick. 3 months is actually not that long. You're unlikely to achieve all of those things as well as you want to. And you're far more likely to try to do everything at once, struggle, feel frustrated, feel disappointed, maybe do a few things to 50%, but ultimately not make meaningful growth on the things that are most important to you, and also probably not have the best time personally. We've all had that experience, right? Where you write a to-do list and it's so overambitious. And it's overambitious to the point where you just beat yourself up the whole day and tell yourself, I can't do this, I'm rubbish, I'm not achieving anything. I love being a little bit overambitious, but there's a difference between helpful overambition and just overwhelming ourselves with too much. A lot of the conversations I'm having with my clients at the moment are about focus, about actually being more specific and putting the blinkers on to just have a few key things that they're trying to do between now and the end of the year. If your focus in this next season is sales and revenue and profit, I'm going to promise you, you will see way more success if you focus in on maybe 1, 2, 3 things to sell, offers, products, services, than trying to develop and promote your whole business model over the next few months. The more focused you can be, the better the results are going to be, and also the better your experience is going to be of achieving those results, because where focus goes, momentum flows. Oh my God, I just made that up on the spot. Maybe I heard that before somewhere. I feel like I've seen that on Pinterest or something like that, right? Where it's like where focus goes, things grow. I don't know. Focus is important, is what I'm trying to say here. And if you can't sum up in a sentence your focus for the next few months, you're probably trying to do too much. I'm saying this from lived experience. I've had so many experiences in business where when I try and do too much at once, it just creates that cycle of frustration and disappointment. And even if I did achieve all of those things, actually a few of them were the most important things. And I could have then done those things quicker if I'd have just focused in on only them. So my question to you is, what does meaningful growth look like in the next 3 months? If you could only achieve a couple of things in your business, a few key areas of growth, what would that be? Don't put the pressure on those answers to be, perfectly obvious or for it to feel super easy. And maybe there will be multiple things that are important to you, but sometimes it's just a question of, right, if I had to just have a few areas of focus, what would they be? If I had the blinkers on, what is it that I would be looking at in the next few months? For me, it's 2 things. It's first of all, launching On It for 2026, which can't believe I'm saying that out loud. I feel like it was only yesterday that On It first launched for 2025, but what a year it's been. Of course, it's carrying on for 2026, and I want to honor what an amazing program it is by giving it my focus to launch that over the next few months. In fact, I'm not going to sell anything else for the next 3 months apart from that. It's a big decision. Feels like I'm making some sacrifices, but I know that that focus is going to pay off. And my second focus is on rolling out my rebrand and continuing to implement the strategy that I built across May, June, July. Those are my 2 things. Anything else that's coming up, people are asking me, when's your next retreat? I've got ideas for events that I want to run. I've got on paper products, and I'm like, okay, maybe they will come in over the next 3 months, but only once these 2 things are really honored. My non-negotiable laser focus is those 2 things. And that laser focus is so helpful in every day now. I'm knowing, right, that is what I'm nudging towards. What can I do each day to move towards that? The third step then, which leads on from that, is once you have that laser focus, I personally think it's so helpful to then set yourself targets and smaller milestones within that. If one of your focuses is to do with sales, profit, revenue, set some targets for yourself. I made an episode 2 years ago now, around this time of year, talking about how I had generated, I can't remember the exact number, but it was like a huge amount of money in my business in a short period of time. It was in Q4 because, as I said, I feel like Q4 is always full of so much opportunity. I did an episode all about how I kind of, made that money in a short period of time, which is basically what I'm sharing in today's episode. And one of the things that was so helpful to me in that time was having a tracker. I had a tracker on my wall where every, client that booked in, everything that was purchased, any invoice that got paid, I was highlighting these boxes to be like, okay, another £100, another £1,000, another £500. And that is something that I think is so helpful to do because A, it kind of gamifies the process, but B, it helps us to see these milestones and see the progress. When you are laser focused on less, you're often laser focused on bigger projects, and they can feel quite demotivating because it can be like, well, that's going to take weeks, months, so much work to do. Give yourself a tracker. There's a reason that children like sticker charts. And I think at our core, we're all children that still want and need sticker charts. So if you have a financial goal for Q4, make a tracker for yourself. Hold it lightly, be playful. Don't tell yourself that it's about succeeding or failing, but it's going to keep it visible. It's going to keep it interesting to you. You're going to see the momentum. If it's not a financial goal, you can break a project down into tiny steps. Rolling out my rebrand feels like a massive thing. It is a massive thing, but if I break it down and just go, right, one step is to make new podcast artwork. Monday of this week, when I'm recording this, I was like, okay, I just need to chip away, right? Make new podcast artwork, right? I need to break that down even further. Make some ideas on Canva, share them on Instagram to get people's opinions, then update the podcast, right? Break it down, make it easier for yourself to see those smaller steps and have targets so that you are able to stay on track. If you have this kind of North Star vision of where you want to be at the end of the year, you've got to give yourself these smaller checkpoints, these smaller goalposts that help you to see where you're going. And targets, whether they be financial or to do with any other data in your business, I think at this time of year can be really beneficial. It's that feeling of kind of bringing in that clarity of like, this is what I'm going for and seeing that momentum happen. It's amazing to me how when people have financial targets, they often hit them. And they often hit them like perfectly. And I don't think that's chance. I think that's when we have a target, our action follows. Which, speaking of action, the fourth thing that I want to share with you is that if we have those targets, what's so important next is the tracking, right? If setting a target, putting it in a notebook and leaving it there is not going to be helpful. It's going to make you feel good for about 20 minutes and then it's not going to be of any use. It's not going to make meaningful change. Having a target and then being persistent in your tracking and monitoring, that's what makes a difference. Setting a financial target is step one. Making yourself some kind of tracker, having a habit where you're adding the numbers in, that's going to be what really makes the difference because it's keeping those blinkers on and almost creating these moments. If you imagine yourself going on a journey, going down a road, you're creating these signposts. When you're going on a big drive, imagine if you saw no road signs. You had no clue that you were going in the right direction. You'd probably have moments of questioning yourself. Maybe you'd slow down. Maybe you'd have some doubt. Whereas if you're on a road and you've got constant signs that go, you are going there, you are going there, you are closer to there. It's less now, right? It's motivating. It helps you keep going. It keeps you focused. So data tracking, whatever data that is that's valuable for your focus, I think is so key in this final stretch. And I don't believe in just tracking every single number in your business for the sake of it. I don't even really believe in putting it into a spreadsheet if you don't need it in a spreadsheet. It can be a piece of paper on your desk. It can be the notes app on your phone. It can be just looking at things. It doesn't even always need to be something that you like physically write down, but help yourself to track the progress. Have checkpoints with yourself each week, each month. We just go, right, what's next? How are we doing? because this final stretch can go so quickly, we've got to create these checkpoints so that we don't just get to the end of the year and go, oh crap, I kind of forgot about that thing I was focusing on. Give yourself those checkpoints to keep coming back to it. So those are the 4 steps. They're the 4 things that I do every single September, really intentionally, to set myself up for meaningful growth in Q4, for momentum, for my biggest for sales period, to really make things happen. As a recap, it's first of all, remembering you're in control of your business and act like it. Second of all, have a laser focused vision, put the blinkers on. Third of all, have targets for yourself, break down that bigger project or goal into smaller steps and goalposts. And step 4, track. Have these moments where you come back to the plan, track your progress, keep yourself going. Don't expect it to be perfectly linear in terms of progress. There might be days, weeks where you lose track. That's okay. Get back to it. It's about bounce back rate over consistency. Now, I said at the start of this episode, there's a 5th final sneaky step, which if you've listened this far, you're being treated because you're the first person to know about this. You've heard me say already, Onnit is coming back for 2026. I've decided to open the waitlist a little bit early just to you podcast listeners, because this is the heart of where I love to share. This is most likely where a lot of the concept behind Onnit was developed, as I've talked so many years about my method of goal setting and working on your business. And so if you head to the show notes, wherever you're listening or watching, you can get yourself first in line for Onnit 2026. I love Onnit. It's the most impactful thing I've ever created. I'm so proud of it. If you've never heard of Onnit before, get ready for your business to be changed, because it's like nothing else. It's like a gym membership, but for working on your business. I don't teach you things. We don't just sit and chat. You actively work on your business every single month. You do the things that I've talked about in this episode, but in a guided setting so that it's easier to do. You don't have to do it for and by yourself. And it's a space where really ambitious business owners get together and just prioritize their growth. Amidst all the noise and the other priorities and the admin to-dos that are in your business, Onnit is a space where you can step out of the everyday, connect back to your vision and keep yourself on track, right? We do the work that I've talked about in this episode in that group setting, and you can follow my methods, you get resources, it's magic. There's some really exciting shifts coming to make next year's Onnit even better than this year's, which honestly, I'm not just bragging here, has been incredible so far. I would love to have you in there. So if you want to be first in line for when the doors open in a few weeks' time, they're opening end of October, early November, head to the show notes, get yourself on that wait list and get excited, because one of the best things that you can do in Q4 for your business is join Onnit. And I'm not just saying that. When I sell Onnit, it doesn't feel like selling, because it's so good and it works so well and it's so simple and it's so accessible. So the 5th and final best thing that you can do for your business in Q4 is join Onnit for 2026. Your future self will be very grateful. I will leave the link in the show notes to get yourself on that wait list. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'm cheering you on as you make Q4 full of intentional growth for your business. Come back to this episode whenever you need these reminders, and I'll catch you in the next one.